Hello everybody, it's Wyvern here with another bit of Total War Warhammer 2 quick match gameplay. This time around we are on Eschen playing as the Empire against the force of the Beastmen. And in this match, incidentally, because of the comp my opponent also brought, one of the things I really wanted to highlight is what I would consider one of the currently more broken or definitely more ridiculous spells. And that is the Lore of Beasts Manticore summon. So previously, this spell was kind of trash tier for a really long time. Back in the day, it was a bit of a rare niche pick before Rampage was implemented on the Feral Manticore. It was a bit of a niche pick that cost a lot of wins magic, so you didn't see it very often. Then Rampage hit with Warhammer 2. It basically became completely useless because it was a very expensive summon. But then they reduced its degradation rate when it's just passively for being a summon and dropped the cost down to 14. So now you can actually summon, if you're playing as Dark Elves, you can actually summon 5 Manticores in a single game if you bring all Lore of Beast casters. And if you're playing as Empire here with double Hammer Wizards, I can actually summon 4 over the course. So that is what we're doing here. We're doing a very gimmicky Air Force build. For my Lord rolling with Boris Todbringer, not much to be said for him. He's fully kitted out with literally everything. He's got Hold the Line, Foe Seeker, Deadly Onslaught, Midland Runefang, Crush the Weak, and White Cloak of Ulrich. Of course, against Beastmen, his Crush the Weak stacks really nicely with Blood Roar on the normal Griffins, and Beastmen, of course, with their bad leadership, really struggled there. We then also do have 2 Manticore summons a piece. I didn't actually bring the lore trait for Lore Beast because I figured it really wasn't going to be that useful with only summons with few casts. Flock of Doom, one of them just in case we don't have enough wins of magic at the end or have used up our summons or whatever, and then 2 Power Stones to get more wins of magic. For a front line, it's simply a whole bunch of Great Swords. In my opinion, this unit, if you're actually trying to slug it out with Beastmen in the front line, Great Swords are actually really good. They trade pretty effectively with Bestigors. They've got very respectable stats in comparison to most Beastmen units, and of course they do have very good armor values, which makes Beastmen infantry mostly ineffective, with the sole exception of Bestigors. Finally, on the flanks, we do have doubled up Pistoliers on either end, and a single United Blazing Sun because I had some points left over, and didn't really want to spend it on infantry, and didn't want to go full on with Pistoliers. So regardless, the Pistolier is pretty good in this matchup. They can zone away throwing axes, they can just chip away at infantry, and they can chip away at cavalry, minotaurs, all sorts of stuff. A very potent unit in their own right. And yeah, definitely can do some work. Now for my opponent, he's actually gone with this very cheesy build of his own. So where I'm going with the Mass Air Force, he has brought a Brave Shaman of Beasts on the ground here who has 1 cast of Transformation of Kadon. So those Manticores with the respectable stats, decent damage output, and fairly cheap cost are going to be flying all over the place. He also does have Amber Spear, Flock of Doom, Wild Heart, and Jack and Dagger. And he's on a chariot so he can run over my infantry. My opponent also did bring Mordor Shadowgave with both casts of Chaos Spawn, Foe Seeker, and Call to Violence. He does have the Eye of Morsleaf, the Regiment of Renown, Cygor, looking to tee off on my poor Greatswords already, backed by the Koroks Manticore there to protect it. And out in the front, it's simply a whole bunch of Goreherds to provide protection. Finally, on either flank, we do have some Centaurs with Grey Weapons and Chaos Warhounds on either end, looking to counter Heavy Cav. The Sons of Goros, Regiment of Renown, is over here in this pocket. So definitely, early on, my opponent immediately summons Feral Manticore up. I wanted to wait a little bit. I didn't want to summon it immediately, but you can see the degrading rate is pretty slow. It's dropping at 12 damage for every second or every tick of unbiting going on, which is really not much. It's really not too bad. And so you can see here the Pistoliers do get a volley into it. They don't do too much damage, even though it's only got 45 armor. And it immediately jumps in, kills a few Pistoliers, but in comes Boris with the Steel Chair and immediately rampages the Manticore. So it is put in a really bad spot there. Meantime, the Hounds are coming in, but the problem is that Hounds have terrible leadership, and Hounds really can't hold up to these Goon squads because you get your especially with the Pistolier fire. Immediately, you've got the leadership debuff from shooting, which is -5. Then you got damage sustained -12, discouraged -12, and then just terror kicks in and the unit flees. And of course, we've got fear in all our troops there as well. 2 Manticores are now coming in. Unfortunately, here huge miss micros on each flank for me. I simply allow my Pistoliers to get way too close, and they're getting caught by the Warhounds. So how not to play skirmish, guys. I just did a video lecturing on how to play skirmish properly and then promptly flunk. Regardless, my opponent's Manticore has basically been removed from play. Most of the damage went on Boris, who regenerates, which is really nice. And in the meantime, we are hunting down the Sons of Goros, while over here, the Knights of the Blazing Sun smash through the Chaos Warhounds with poison. And with our Flying Goon Squad well on its way, we're looking to sort of dumpster this pocket. Over in the meantime, this unit of Greatswords got completely mauled, but the rest of our Greatswords are making good contact with the Goreherd, and they're going to win this fight very handily, especially as my opponent is not getting his charges up. Playing as Beastmen, you've got to get those charges, guys. It's incredibly important because charge bonus on Beastmen tends to be really good. So it can compensate for lack of AP. Regardless, the Great Swords are going to start hacking their way through this front line pretty effectively. In the meantime, our Manticores are going to dive in here on the Brave Shaman, who is on his chariot, and start doing quite a bit of work. You can see immediately he's losing a couple hundred HP there as the Manticores just chip away at him. They've got respectable, given that this only costs 14 winds of magic, they've got some respectable stats, and they can fly, they cause fear, they cause terror. Sure, they rampage, and sure, they're going to rampage shortly, and I'm going to lose control, but they've done a lot of work. In the meantime, Sons of Gordos forced off over here, and although we've lost about half the unit of Knights of Blazing Sun, my opponent has come out much worse for the wear in this flank fight. We've lost the unit of Pistoliers, we've lost some individual models, about half the unit, but my opponent has lost Centaurs, he's lost both of his Hounds, which I'm now going to chase off the field. And over here, the Sons of Gordos are about to suffer a bit of another crushing blow as they're trying to come into the back against the Great Swords, and they're going to get caught out here by the Amber Wizard and then by Boris and just completely dumpstered, and that's going to be not good for them. In the backline, in the meantime, Manticore is continuing to harass the back. Now, obviously, my opponent here has actually gotten, and this is another funny thing about Morgar's Chaos Spawn summon actually popped up prematurely on a summoned Manticore, so an unintentional wasting of my opponent's resources there, because these Chaos Spawn are in a pointless position right now, and my opponent's been forced to summon both of his Chaos Spawn to try to defend the back line. And because of that, they're not in the front line. My Great Swords are not going to die to that summon, and I didn't actually notice this in the game, but it's actually pretty funny. And now we're just pushing through. Great Swords are plowing through the front. Over here, my opponent's second Manticore summon is going to get dumpstered by my Air Force. The two Amber Wizards will be able to tear it apart. And Boris, in the meantime, with the Knights of Blazing Sun, completely smushing these Sons of Goros and then looking to come back in for a rear charge on these Goreherd. And you can see the Great Swords here doing a wonderful job. I did actually hit these guys with a Chevron before the match. Now we're going to come in with Boris, apply that terror, and these guys are just raking the kills, holding their ground, not giving up. Even with the poison being applied by the Chaos Spawn, they're doing really, really well. Same thing over here, basically. These Great Swords, once again, being debuffed, are actually holding their own against Koroks Manticore, against Chaos Spawn, against Morgar, all of which are definitely, given how badly beat up they are much more valuable and much more competent units. But regardless, my opponent has now lost his Feral Manticore, basically, so his Manticore summons are done. We summon another Feral Manticore because we're complete jerks, and we're going to immediately sick it on this poor Brave Shaman. And in the meantime, you know, my opponent is starting to run out of resources. Now, certainly, balance of power is dead even, give or take. My Amber Wizards here actually kind of a misplay here on my part, allowing my Amber Wizard to get in here stuck against the Chaos Spawn. I kind of assumed that these guys would drop a little faster, but the fact of the matter is Amber Wizards have very low armor, they're very squishy, and so this guy's actually going to rout here. He's going to be forced to flee. But the other Amber Wizard is pretty healthy. Boris is still regenerating, he's still got a lot of HP, and we're able to remove this Brave Shaman from play. Elsewhere, Manticore has Rampage now. It is still doing quite a bit of damage here, being a nuisance in the back, tying down these Chaos Spawn, buying me time. And meantime, the Pistoliers now are going to be able to start focusing on a prime target, these best Goreherd, the Koroks Manticore, who at this point are the most threatening unit on my opponent's roster. Cygor, obviously a potent unit, but we can just cycle charge the hell out of it, and we can shoot it down a bit. But more importantly, really, just the Amber Wizards and Boris can cycle charge it. And for everything else, well, Koroks Manticores, they are very potent, like we just said, but yeah, well, they gotta get rid of, so we're gonna shoot them now. If they're tired, which is kind of good, hopefully their vigor drops sooner rather than later, so we can get rid of their armor and do more damage that way. But regardless, you can see the Cygor here taking a bit of damage. The Iron War's not holding it too well, and of course, Boris's effects are coming into play. Unfortunately, the Amber Wizard here is actually going to rout and shatter, I do believe, and he's not coming back. But the Pistoliers doing some mop-up on the flanks, getting rid of these Goreherd, getting rid of the Sons of Goros. And our Knights of Blazing Sun rallying here in the distance, having run down some filthy Gores, and now coming back in. And the Pistoliers chipping away as the Great Swords are piling into the fray, looking to get on top of these Vestigores. And like I said before, Great Sword is not a bad unit. With my opponent's troops all facing the wrong way, they're able to get some damage in, even though they are exhausted. And these guys now are actually very tired, so definitely good for me. In the meantime, we're getting one more Manticore summon. So this is, we got our full cast off of 4 Manticores. Now, obviously, you can't really get all of your Manticores off in a short amount of time. If you want 2 Manticores up in the air, it is actually possible. If they're not fighting a terrible unit or a terribly effective unit, and you've only got 1 caster, you can get them back to back. But if you want to get 4 off, you can probably get 2 and then 2. You're probably not going to get the full 4 off at the same time. But regardless, the Manticore dives in here, gets rid of these Goreherd, provides that terror. And in the meantime, here in the back, the poor Koroks Manticore is getting torn up. The Great Swords chopping them to bits. Really doing some valuable work there. The Pistoliers raining death and destruction on the Morsley. And now it is the end for the poor Beastie Boys as this Manticore takes off. He's going to dive right into his pocket. Of course, looking for a recharge. He has basically his healing cap, but he's definitely still going to be brutal. The Amber Wizard is shortly going to be pulled back, looking to do some more damage. Now, unfortunately, they're actually hitting the Amber Wizard. It's pretty nuts, but it just doesn't matter at this point, as my opponent's army is completely dumpstered and shatters to army losses. The Cygor there falling down in a very cinematic moment, and a Pyrrhic victory for Empire. So, in my opinion, this is in this match, it was obviously my build was pretty cheesy. To be honest, my opponent's build was very cheesy as well, like going for double summons, Eye of Morsley, Ball of Orger summons, bit gimmicky build as well. So 2 gimmicky builds facing off, but I do think this match actually highlighted how stupidly powerful the Manticore summons are. With my Manticores, I was able to constantly be disrupting my opponent's backline. I was able to overwhelm my opponent's cavalry early on. I was able to pressure his caster the whole time. And on the flip side, my opponent didn't get much value out of his summons, but that was simply because I just had such a crazy air force. But I do think it shows how potent this spell is to an extent. And given that it only costs 14, do keep in mind it's only a 14 Winds of Magic spell. It's not like I'm paying 20 or 20, whatever the summon is. I think it's 26 for the Cygor summon. It's a pretty cheap spell to get. Not quite as cheap as, say, Rotting Prometheans, but I'm sure stupidly underpriced at, I think, 11 Winds of Magic. But still, a very, very cheap spell that you can just spam. And, yeah, we got all 4 of our Manticore summons off in this game. Against fear and terror-susceptible factions like Beastmen, it's very, very potent. If you've got one of those cavalry fights on the sides, you summon some Manticores and you can really shut things down, and it's very, very efficient. And I think I didn't even use them that well in this game. And obviously, if you can just bring one caster. I was kind of going all in here with the Air Force theme, but you don't even have to bring an all Air Force theme. You can bring one caster, and still those Manticores are so cheap and efficient. You can get your 2 Manticores off and still have a good 30 Winds of Magic left in your bank. Honestly, if you're looking for a decent building against Beastmen, this is not terrible. I wouldn't recommend it necessarily because if your opponent swarms you, you're probably going to get wrecked. But, well, maybe not. I don't know. The fear and terror is it's gonna be very much about the fear and terror and being able to apply that if your opponent goes for a very swarmy build. But definitely, Greatsword's not a bad unit if you can defend against Cygors in some way, shape, or form, where you can just you're willing to take the hit on like Greatswords. Greatswords are good in this match. They will tear Beastmen infantry a new one, and so they're very, very effective. That's a Blazing Sun, fun little unit. You can do Reichsguard, whatever. Usually, I run more heavy cab oriented builds against Beastmen, but in this situation, obviously, we couldn't afford it. Pistoliers also a very useful unit. This is one of the matchups where I think they can be an incredibly oppressive and dominant force. Outriders are way too easy to catch, in my opinion. Now, you can make them work. I have made them work. I have run great grenade launchers, especially in this match. But when push comes to shove, I think Pistoliers are just a safer option against Beastmen, and will deliver a good enough performance, especially against things like Minotaurs, Centaurs, Eye of Morsley, that sort of stuff. And they can chase those units off the map as well. For my opponent's build, obviously it was very gimmicky, so it's kind of hard to judge exactly. I do think that not working together more with his cavalry and his summons definitely hurt him. The fact of the matter is, he could have probably played much more defensively, forced me to come to him with the Cygor, kept his cav mob in the back, protecting it, and I would have had a much harder time, I think, getting in, because all I had really on the ground was Knights of the Blazing Sun. Sure, I had the Pistolier pressure, but I think that with a Manticore summon, the 2 Centaurs, the Warhounds, Mortar perhaps in there, surrounding on stacked on the Eye of Morsley, especially with the net from the Eye of Morsley, I think my opponent would have been in a much better spot. And well, I could dive into the front line. He could certainly sort of pin me down and then try to pressure me with Centaurs and that sort of stuff. I think it would have been safer for my opponent to play cautiously. But regardless, very well played. One of the funny things, of course, was that his unintentionally funny things was that my opponent's Chaos Spawn summon went off on the Manticore summon, which kind of sucked for him because that is a couple hundred gold, I do believe, from order summon that you're paying, and having it procced by a summon of your opponent's when it's about to be useless and dead anyway is definitely unfortunate. But regardless, well played to my opponent, Iron Thunder here. I do hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you found it entertaining and give you something to watch out for. If you're playing against a faction with Lore of Beasts and you see that your opponent brought a Lore of Beasts caster, well, be wary. You might be seeing some filthy Manticore spam. Regardless, hope you guys enjoy it. If you have any comments, any criticism, if you think it's fine and you think it's balanced, which it might be, it's just kind of, I think, a bit oppressive, but Perhaps it is, if you think it's balanced, if you agree and you don't think it's balanced, if you think there's other issues at work here, be sure to post them, and I'll do my best to respond as soon as I can. I do thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye for now.